I've always been the successful one in my family. My siblings, well, they just want free handouts. So when it came time to talk about inheritance, we divvied up everything and split it evenly. Well, I decide to invest the money into our family restaurant. And, well, when they find out that I'm very successful now, they're coming back with a lawyer and saying, hey, no, we want part of your restaurant since you used it with your inheritance money. Guys, they actually might win in court because of one small thing.
Being the older brother, though there was my older sister too, being a boy and the most mature of my other two siblings, I'd always been, through the worst and tried to shield them as much as possible. Our mother left us at a very young age, and our father got our custody as she had no intention to take our extra burden with her. She abandoned us as soon as she was out of the house, leaving us with our father, who worked day and night tirelessly to make enough money, as he had to make ends meet somehow. My siblings weren't as cooperative as they should have been, as my sister Sarah always made sure to give Dad stress through her reckless actions, and the youngest, Peter, the most famous troublemaker, and was not any less. They both had been bratty since childhood, and made sure to give Dad an extra headache with their tantrums all day. My grandfather has started a very small neighborhood eating place, which my father had transformed into a small family restaurant after inheriting it as his only child. Dad had it as his only means of earning, and whatever profits he would get, he would spoil us with it. Sarah and Peter were always demanding and made sure to keep asking for money from Dad. They had always ignored our financial situation, focusing on their own life mostly. Their behavior had not gone unnoticed by Dad, though. He had a good idea of their troublesome personalities. Sarah was obnoxious and loved showing off. She loved wearing branded clothing and luxurious dresses. She was friends with some rich girls, which only added fuel to the fire of envy she had in her heart. She would demand lots of money from our father just to spend it on meaningless things. It was not a shocker that we were not loaded with money, but rather had humble roots. But her inferiority complex got worse with age. She would hang out with rich girls and try to mimic their living style. While, on the other hand, Peter was hot-headed and was always involved in fights in the neighborhood, school, and whatever person he met on the street. He had very bad company and got himself into smoking and drinking, wasting loads of Dad's hard-earned money on his troublesome habits. His friends, well, they were a bunch of delinquents. I would try to stop him, and this would lead to us arguing and fighting, one of the reasons he hated my nerves. It wasn't hidden that Dad trusted me the most among his 3 children, which made all of us mad. I was a quiet and understanding child and spent my childhood without making any noise. I would also help Dad in his restaurant after school and learned a lot about smaller restaurants and also developed an interest in cooking. None of my siblings even liked it. I would spend hours learning new recipes and experimenting with new dishes, which Father encouraged. While working there, I learned how to manage business too, which was why I chose business management as my major and graduated with a degree in it. Even after growing up, our personalities were not the same. I got settled into my mid-30s and got married, while Sarah already had 2 times divorced, and Peter with no interest in marriage, but rather dating and breaking up with different women all the time. Because of them being jobless, Dad still supported them financially while I worked in a private company. It was like that for years, until 5 years ago my world came crashing down when my dad developed a lung infection, and he passed away after being on bed rest for months. On his deathbed, he had pleaded with me to continue his small business, and I promised him. This commitment made me quit my job. My wife was apprehensive, but I had to fulfill my father's last wish because of all the things that he did for me. Because of Dad's absence, the restaurant had gone through a big loss and was a brim of failure. It was the only piece of inheritance along with some saved-up money our father left us. When my siblings learned about my dad's wishes, they disregarded it and demanded their share. Well, They called it nonsense and completely refused to help revamp it, and I was heartbroken, but still, I did not give up. The restaurant's worth was calculated, and in order for me to keep it, I had to pay my siblings their share. But even my share of the money was not enough to pay their share from the restaurant. I decided to look for jobs, but I knew that it was an empty attempt for me to get an employee loan. They would require a few years of service, and my siblings would never give me that much time. I was extremely stressed because of that and contacted several people for a loan, but no one was ready to lend me the amount of money that I needed. A few days passed and I started losing hope. The pressure from my siblings was increasing, and I was scared that I would not be able to fulfill my dad's promise. It was then that my friend from the company I worked for a brief period of time, contacted me. He only called to know about my whereabouts, but when I told him about my situation, he offered to help me. I was very shocked, but my friend reminded me that when he joined the company, I had helped him with tons of tasks, so it was a payback for kindness. I could not believe my ears and considered it a scam. But literally, 2 days later, he came to my house with the amount, saying he sold a small house that he owned back in his hometown to get the money. I felt troubled and guilty, but he asserted that he was going to sell it anyways and was just going to invest the money somewhere. Anyways, with the money in my hands, I immediately paid Sarah and Peter, who abandoned the restaurant and left. After that, they did not contact me, and I had no idea where they went or what they did with that amount of money. Now, the problem was the failing restaurant and its increasing loss and no profit at all. I decided to work there full-time, and my friend helped me rebuild it even. My first goal was being a restaurant back, to its feet. I started working at the restaurant and trying new cuisines and selling food at cheaper rates at first just to attract customers again. This trick worked, and slowly I started adding more dishes and increasing the rates accordingly. It was a slow but continuous process, and within 5 years I was able to transform that small restaurant into a flourishing hotel. With the help of my friend, I expanded the hotel and, in the end, built a famous and successful business. I was living luxuriously, earning fortunes from my business. That's when the trouble arrived. Sarah, my sister, who had not contacted me even once within 5 years of our father's death, came to my house. My wife called me informing me of her arrival, and I could not even be more shocked. I immediately drove back home and saw her fuming with anger as she bickered with my wife. I interfered, and with her eyes falling on me, the same look I had seen her giving rich people and luxury items, she gave me exactly that look. I recognized her jealousy that very moment, and she starts saying that Peter and she want their share. Well, I was confused and did not know what she was even talking about. Just then, a man entered. Rather than greeting me, Peter walked straight towards the couch and sat on it, with his eyes looking around and taking in my house interior. I waited for him to go ahead and speak up, and he said the exact same words as her. When I failed to understand their demand, they opened up their mouth and started spouting absolute nonsense, saying that they want their share in the hotel that I built. A humorless laugh escaped my mouth. Of course, I should have expected this kind of thing from them, and I looked at them with dark eyes before muttering, "Get out." Both were stunned, and I knew I had distributed everything equally, and now they must have heard about my flourishing business and are here to make money. Take it away from me, because of their greediness. My words angered Sarah, who started screaming and yelling that it's Dad's restaurant, and they deserved their share as if she had not taken the money before. I was losing my patience at this point and again told them to get lost from my sight. This time, Peter came forward and charged towards me, throwing a punch at my face. I was stupefied and exasperated by his actions. I glared at him before punching him right back in his face, making him fall down, and I think I might have broken his nose if only my wife did not hold me back. Sarah stood a little shocked, but immediately regained her composure as she stormed out yelling profanities and dragging Peter with her before I could teach him a good old-fashioned lesson. I knew they would not give up so easily, and it was impossible for them to even stay quiet. And just as I expected, a few days later, I get a call from Sarah, threatening to take me to court if I did not give them a share of it. I could not help but do another chuckle. Her stupidity, and told her to do whatever she want. I'm not giving them a penny. To any of them, no matter what. My words were enough to ignite the fire of hatred in them, and as expected, a few days later, I did receive a notice from the court. I was informed that my siblings had filed a case against me for fraudulent dealing and unjust possession of their inheritance. I immediately let my friend, who was also my partner in business, know about the matter, and we both discussed it in depth before contacting a very famous lawyer in our town to fight the case on my behalf. We shared each and every detail of the matter with him and waited for the court trial to begin to know what lies they fabricated against me. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Oh boy, so this one's a sibling rivalry. I do have some updates to hop into. It looks like 4. So I hope you guys are having a great day today. If you're new to the channel, take a second. Hit that subscribe button. If you want more daily videos, hit the bell notification so you don't miss an upload. Here is update number 1. Just 2 days later, the trial began, and I was dumbfounded to hear the charges and claims that they laid against me. They included fraudulent dealings as expected, but also an accusation that made me absolutely speechless that I intentionally undervalued the inheritance and gave them way less money compared to what they deserved and left them with no part in our father's legacy. I knew that I was the one who put the restaurant for sale to determine its worth, but I had equally divided it with no unfair advantages for myself. Sarah and Peter sat opposite to me in the courtroom, and their gazes were throwing daggers at me as if I was the enemy, not their sibling, and as if I had actually done them wrong. How shameless can they get? I wondered to myself. My lawyer, however, informed the judge that at the time the restaurant valued nothing like its value today, and I had distributed the money, the same amount of money it was worth at the time. Well, however, there's nowhere to determine if I undervalued it or not, as I was the one who calculated the amount. But my siblings had accepted the amount happily, back then. If they found it to be unjust, why are they bringing it up now, when I'm successful? At this question, I saw Sarah and Peter have this nervous sweat, as they glanced at their lawyer for a good response. The man claimed that the two were in need of money back then, and weren't sure if I would snatch even that little amount that they argued, so they accepted it, but by now, seeing me make such amount of profit from the business, I just feel upset to not have a part of the business their father left for them. I knew just saying that they refused to help me maintain it won't work, as I have no way to prove my words, and them living a pitiful life is being benefit to them, to act as if they were wronged. The first trial ended, and we both were ordered to prove more evidence to support our statements. I was not sure of myself anymore. Did I actually strip them of their share? But they themselves had refused to have anything with that small restaurant or even help me take care of it. All they wanted was money. I was still in this confusion that what I did was right or wrong, with Peter again visiting me. This time, he was there with some men. I threatened to call the cops, but he threatened to break everything in my house and destroy everything if I utter a word. I watched him enter my home as he demanded me to back off from the case. His behavior made me agitated, and I slapped him right across the face. A fight broke out, and both of us beat each other as much as we could, before the cops finally arrived. Peter accused me of threatening him first, and both of us got charged as the men had also charged him during the fight, making it seem as if I hired them. I didn't know he could get this wicked. Update number 2. Hey guys, My lawyer warned me not to participate in any kind of fight after what happened a few days ago, as it put me in a very bad position. I was the one who was financially strong, and Peter was the seemingly pitiful victim to the story, and it was easy to fabricate whatever he wanted. Though, after the incident, I installed CCTV in my house, and I knew my attorney was absolutely right. This time their case got stronger, and I was worried that I would be the one to lose the case. However, that's when my friend stepped in as a witness from my side and informed the court of his role and what I went through, but again, him being my friend made the situation a bit biased from other people's point of view. So, we were aware of the fact that we needed stronger evidence, so before the last hearing, I used everything in my power to find something that can help me win the case. That included finding old property agents who helped me find out the value to our old friends. In this process, I met a man who told me something which left me absolutely stunned. He told me that he invested money with my siblings in a business that failed because of their negligence, making him lose literally everything. He gave us proof of the transactions, and it was a big piece of evidence we acquired. But I still continued my search to find more evidence. A thought crossed my mind, and I remembered that I never asked my dad's lawyer to hand over the full will to me, as I was with my father during his last breaths. I thought he might have said everything he wanted to me, so I started looking for the man and as a result found him. He informed me that he handed me over the will 5 years ago along with every document. I went back home and started searching through the old documents I kept, and after 2 hours, I did find them, but what was written inside absolutely shocked me the most. I thought I had read it properly, but maybe during that grief period, I did not pay much attention to detail. It turned out that my father had left a secret, little note in his will, stating that if the children could not work together, the successful one would rightfully inherit everything. This discovery put Sarah and Peter's lawsuit in a different light and makes me reconsider my stance. Washing all the guilt that I felt for them, I was confident that I could finally win this lawsuit now. Update number 3. Before the next trial, Sarah was the one who contacted me this time. I expected nothing good from her, too. She tried to tell me a sob story about her pathetic life and how she's ashamed of what she had done and that I should give her the money. I waited for her to mention the investment both of them made, and now they're just trying all their power to save their sinking business. But she tried to act sly and focused more on emotional manipulation, which of course did not work as I learned the truth. It did not take her long to start cursing and throwing insults right at me when I told her no matter what, I'm not giving a penny to them, and she would try to improve her acting skills. It would be helpful for her. I knew she was a crazy woman after learning about how miserable she made the life of her ex-husband. And now that I found people whom they both had acquired money after bluffing, I knew they needed to learn a lesson. You see, they had taken money from quite a lot of people by giving them false hope of making them rich, when they themselves can't become rich, and those people had easily fallen prey to them. I also got to know that Peter was a gambler and was involved in illegal activities. He had lots of debt on him and was involved in looting small shops too. He was a criminal, and it wasn't a shocker. I decided to let all the people meet my lawyer, and I was ashamed to know what kind of person he had actually become. But it was on him. Just when I thought I had enough of both of them, I was proven wrong. But then an unexpected thing happened. I was driving back home alone at night from the restaurant when a bunch of armed men entered the hotel and started breaking stuff, scaring customers and looting money. I received the call and got alarmed, but when I called the police and reached there, everything was destroyed. There was glass pieces shattered everywhere, and my staff was even beaten, and my money they earned that day was gone. I had my suspicions, but I knew I had no evidence to prove anything. The case was filed against anonymous people, as nobody knew who those people were. I discussed the incident with my friend, and we decided to allow the police to investigate it properly. So, we handed them all the CCTV footage. However, the identity of masked men was hard to reveal. I was furious, and now there was no way I would let them get away after what they've done to me. I was determined to put them behind bars where they belong, and just make sure that they get the punishment that they deeply deserve. Update number 4. The news of us siblings fighting a lawsuit was the talk of the neighborhood. Everyone was on their side because of their pitiful lives and labeled me as some sort of, demon. Everybody was ready to boycott it without even knowing the truth. The news had spread like wildfire, and it even affected my customer base. My business was affected badly, and I wanted to prove myself innocent, ASAP, just to avoid further damage. Finally, the eventful day arrived. During the last hearing, my lawyer put out all the evidence we gathered and let everyone know of their own fraudulent dealings and bluffing people. All the victims were presented in the court as they let their stance known. People were shocked to know how messed up both of them were, and one of my sister's ex-husbands was also there and gave a statement in my favor, accusing her of looting money and bluffing him too. Peter's gambling and past criminal records were brought and presented. There were victims that got their properties damaged by his group of gambling friends. It all made me close to winning the case, but what made the case so strong was my father's will, which shocked the both of them. There was nothing else to prove, and I obviously won the case and got the restaurant all to myself. Both of them were charged for their actions because of serious criminal records and correct financial bluffing with people. They were jailed for a few years too. I left the court with my head held high and my heart light with happiness and absolute relief. It did not take long for everyone to learn the truth and for me to have my customers back and open up my hotel again. I could not thank my father enough for everything he did for me in his life, and even after leaving me after his sad death. If he had not left the will, I would not have known that whatever I did was right and according to what he wanted. You see, they never respected his wishes back then, and just always troubled him, so it's no wonder that they felt no sympathy for him after he died and only cared about his money. Years later, when they finally get out of jail, I got to know that Sarah was living as a full-time maid somewhere while Peter's location was still unknown. He might have gone back to gambling as old habits die hard. They had tons of money they owed to different people, and I made sure to get a restraining order against them, so they won't be able to disturb my life anymore. Nobody knew where he went, and nobody even cared. I, however, opened another branch of my hotel and shifted into an even bigger house. I was making sure to donate money to charities too, so that my dad's soul would be happy.
Alright, so this was a classic case of karma. It looked like OP actually won in the end, and, well, his siblings got sentenced to some jail time. But I want to hear from you guys. If you were in OP's position, and you split the inheritance even, and then all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork and try to take you to court, well, how devastating would that be for somebody's mental health? I could not imagine having to go through that with my siblings, but let me know what you guys think about this story, because it was definitely a wild ride with a lot of karma that was popping up left and right. Drop your comments down below, guys. If you're new to the channel, I want to welcome you. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate and animate stories every single day, so if you want more daily videos, all you gotta do is subscribe to the channel, hit that bell notification icon. I will see you guys tomorrow, and remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya.